As long as that mouth works, you'll never go broke. Now, when you hear something like that from a certified crackhead, your mind probably goes to one place. And you're not wrong. One of my good friends actually told me once that the reason he'll never try crack, the main reason is because he doesn't want to risk loving something so much that he'd be willing to put another man's penis in his mouth to get some more of it. But that lesson, like many others from crackheads, goes way deeper than that. The idea is simple here. If you know how to communicate and connect with people, you'll always be able to find opportunities. Even if you just decided to beg for money, coming up with a funny sign or slogan goes a lot further than just sitting on your ass silent, holding out a cup, hoping that people take pity on you. That ultimately translates into a mindset, the crackhead hustle mindset that I talk more about more in depth in my new book, Hard Lessons from the Hurt Business, Boxing, and the Art of Life. You can download the first chapter of the book at the link in the pinned comment or in the description. Now, in the first chapter of the book, I talk about some of the crackhead behavior I observed growing up, and one of my earliest memories of encountering these foul beasts was during a morning walk to the bus stop with my mom, who herself was a grizzled veteran of many crackhead encounters, where she blurted out, "I've been watching that same dope fiend chase a rock for the last 4 days without sleeping." That's when I learned about the crackhead hustle. And really, that's just one lesson. Now, it's the main lesson we can take from crackheads, but the rest of this video goes into 10 supporting lessons that you can take from crackheads and take advantage of without ever having to smoke crack yourself. Now, crack is seen as a bit of an old head drug. Everyone today is doing fent, but I grew up in the crackhead era. Youngins today don't know what it was like being able to get meat, furniture, appliances, and even stolen cable because crackheads needed money. Wasn't nobody nodding off, and they damn sure wasn't no D in the way they are today with these opioids. Because crack gives you energy. The opioids just make you sleepy. You got a different class of addict, and that comes with a whole different class of lessons. Now, you already got the first life lesson at the start of this video. If that mouth works, you'll never be broke. Keeping that in mind will always keep you connected and guarantee your bank account never gets on E. But one thing crackheads can teach you is that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If you're unfamiliar with that phrase, another way to say it is that the best way to solve a problem is to prevent it. And this is something that crackheads know very well, which is why the second life lesson from a crackhead is to never smoke blunts you ain't never personally watched get rolled. Not every crackhead decided they were going to smoke rock. There are quite a few who thought they were smoking one thing, but it turns out it was laced with something else. Now they're stuck being a fiend for the rest of their days. They knew that high was too fierce, but just chalked it up to the weed being strong. If only they hadn't gotten so lazy, they would have been able to see that they were getting hooked on something on the sneak tip. There ain't nothing great about fries to flakes, if you know what I'm saying. If you just wanted something simple, though, you could have went and got some weed, but now you're a slave to the rock. And that's just one way to get hooked on crack. The other way is by falling for a free hit. This is how a lot of dealers got hooked or got folks hooked back in the 80s and the 90s. The dealers knew their product was so good that after the first hit, they'd be hooked and come back spending way more money than they had just lost giving out a free sample. But let that be a lesson, specifically the third life lesson from a crackhead. The first hit is free, but it's going to cost you everything. Take this to mean that nothing in life is free. Ain't no free lunches. If someone tells you something is free, just know that it's going to be way more expensive than if you had just paid the money up front. I personally have turned down things that people have offered for free because the strings that pull the hardest are the ones that you can't see. If the obligations are hidden, then you won't even realize you're being controlled until you try to leave. Another way that people try to control you is by outright deception. If they can make you think they have something rare and valuable, then you'll be more likely, way more likely to give them your time, attention, and in some cases, your money. That's why crackheads live by life lesson number 4. Crack that's too white is cut with some bullshit. See, cooking up a brick is a dirty working process, and that process doesn't create this beautifully pure white crystalline substance. It's going to have a little complexion, as they say. And if it ain't got no stain and color to it, that means it's a dummy rock. This trick only works on fiends who don't know or want to believe in the hype that there's something that's obviously too good to be true out there. This lesson, or the lesson here to take, is that if something seems too perfect, it's probably a lie. With that said, the only way you know if you're messing with the real deal is if it does real things. If you hear an extraordinary claim with no proof, that's one thing. But if you see something and it goes against everything you thought was possible, that's the truth, and you need to plan accordingly. Remember crackhead life lesson number 5. Good coke makes your gums feel dead, but great coke makes them feel alive. The lessons from this ain't exactly from a crackhead. It's from cokeheads, which is basically the same thing as crackheads, if you ask me. If you want to piss someone off who does coke, remind them that it's the same product. Granted, anyone who's ever seen somebody on crack versus somebody on coke knows that the process makes the poison, but it's still a funny way to mess with people who think they're better than crackheads just because they snort a little powder. After you have enough experience, you don't fall for tricks like stuff that looks too white. So now they got to wow you with that payow. Also, there's a lesson about the difference here in good versus great. If you're used to dealing with substandard product, you might not even know what good powder does to your gums. But once you do, you can't go back to that standard Pepsi Challenge brand of drug. Just like how in real life, once you know what excellent feels like, you can't go back to average or even above average. You're going to seek out excellence every day in your life. This is because you know how, or you know the true value of things in the world, or at the very least in your world. This is partly how the crackhead economy works. Crackheads have a sixth sense for determining the value of something before they set it out to be something sold at the crackhead price level, the legendary discount. Circling back to the crackhead hustle, one of the things that drives the hustle of a crackhead is life lesson number 6. Everything has a street value. If somebody paid money for it once, they'll pay money for it again. And even if they didn't pay money for it once, if a crackhead knows how to make that mouth work, he can convince people to buy things they usually get for free. Anyone who's ever bought a bottle of water from a fiend or had one watch their car for $1 knows exactly what I'm talking about. Now, part of the reason the crackhead hustle meme got so popular is because people recognize how hard crackheads work to get high. It's unlike anything the average person has ever witnessed. The closest thing you might see to it is like first generation immigrant work ethic. But here's the thing about crackhead work ethic, and it's the crackhead life lesson number 7. Everybody want that crackhead work ethic, but don't nobody want to smoke no damn crack. People always say, it's not right to compare us to them. They're addicted to crack. Of course they're going to work hard to get some. And to them, I say you damn right. They want crack so badly they'll do anything to get some because they're addicted. Are you willing to get addicted to success the way a crackhead is addicted to crack? If not, you ain't ready to succeed like a crackhead getting that rock. The crackhead hustle can make for a lonely life though. That's why fiends of a feather flock together. Fun fact, the plural of crackhead is bane. So you say something like, yo, did you see that vein of crackheads on the block? Crackheads still work together though, because no one understands what it takes to be a crackhead except other crackheads. So crackhead life lesson number 8 is that crack with no money will get you through tough times better than money with no crack. You might lose your money, but you can hustle money back if you have some crack to keep you going. But if you just have money with no crack, there's no telling what you'll get yourself into because money is just a side effect of focusing on crack. But crack will never be a side effect of focusing on money. Crackheads have a few rules to make sure they don't get taken advantage of. We already talked about not buying crack that's too pure, but another big rule that fiends learn to live by is one that protects them both from bad drug deals and from bad people, at least worse than your average crack dealer. Crackhead life lesson number 9 is to never buy from people who won't try their own product, but don't buy from people who regularly do. Look, this lesson has a lot of truths, but there are 2 important ones that I want you to take with you. First is that you should never take something from someone that they don't want themselves. For example, if a girl is always trying to hook you up with her single friend and she's single, then that's a bad sign. Likewise, if someone is offering you something that's so great, but they won't touch it either, you probably shouldn't touch it. With that said, buying from a fiend ain't the best idea either. Yes, the crackhead hustle means you will get some legendary deals out of it, but you might also have to deal with dope fiend larceny, where they try to set you up, rob you, or give you inferior product, and you have to put your life on the line and put lesson 4 back into action. Remember, that's the one about, crack that's too white is obviously cut with some BS. The trick to applying these crackhead life lessons to the best of your ability and for the rest of your life is to remember that you want to deal with people who stand behind whatever they're selling. But you need to steer clear of them if they don't see anything wrong with it, because that means they're too close to deal with their product and see it objectively. And that's bad news for you, because it means they do anything in service to sell it or to give more of it. That's because of life lesson number 10. Once you go crack, you can't go back. Once you become a fiend, that's what you are. It's like they say, if you build 1,000 bridges and smoke one right, you're not a bridge builder who smoked crack once, you're a crackhead who builds bridges. Keep this in mind before you get involved with anyone or do anything. Everything you touch touches you, for better or worse. It's not so much that you need to guard your reputation, it's that your reputation guards you, so you need to determine what it's guarding. In other words, you can't escape what you're known for, and you become known for what you do. So if you keep this progression in mind, the natural conclusion is that everything you do always becomes a part of you. There ain't no such thing as ex-crackheads, just people who stop smoking crack. If you want to learn more about crackheads, dealers, and the life I grew up where this all came from, watch this video on the screen. And then pick up my new book, Hard Lessons from the Hurt Business, Boxing and the Art of Life. Link in the pinned comment or in the description.